So welcome everyone. This is a special webinar directed toward talent leaders. We've also invited some of our coach partners, our coaches and consultants to join us as well because they're supporting talent leaders externally. So we wanted to invite them as well. So as you know, my name is Stephanie Licata. I'm the Senior Learning Strategist here at Cloverleaf. I'm joined by my phenomenal executive producer, Jason Miller. Jason, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, good to see some familiar faces here in the chat. For those of you that don't know me, I am Cloverleaf's human customer support team and also wear of many other hats here, including helping out with these great webinars. So good to see everybody here today and looking forward to the content.
Awesome. Excellent. So I'm going to share my screen in a moment. We're going to mostly, it's going to be a little lab style. We're going to just for some of you that might need to just understand a little bit about the feedback feature, we're going to demonstrate it. And then we're going to hop right into really looking at embedding it into several people processes and also some leadership programs, career development frameworks. So I'm going to jump right in. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to actually, let's share the resource first as well. Yes, Jason is the best. So Jason's going to share the resource in the chat. This is the resource. We're going to forego slides today. Aren't you all so glad we're not going to do slides? This is the resource we're going to be working from. And we'll embed the recording as we usually do with all our webinars. We'll put it right in the top here. And we're going to work off of the resource and in the tool. Just from a top standpoint, some of you may have used the feedback feature before. Some of you may have not used the feedback feature before. We have put two important links embedded here. Do I need to refresh this? I need to refresh it. Yeah. So we put some links into sort of how it works.
At the top.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Steph. It's
Okay.
right there, right above why multiple assessments.
Oh, got it. Okay.
The main link. Yeah.
Okay. So there's links embedded in here that are more like how does it work, different like FAQs and things like that. How does it work? So if you want to click off into the technical pieces of how it works, we've put embedded links into this resource. But really this feature, I like to call it a little bit of a 360 light, but you're able to actually send feedback. It's not anonymous, but you're able to collect it individual to individual, and you can actually integrate it inside Slack. Is the Teams available yet, Jason, or is it coming? I put the Teams in there, and I realized I might have been ahead of myself.
Sorry, I'm muted. I was muted.
Okay,
Slack is
Slack is
it's good to
available.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Teams is following
Okay,
that.
so
So we're
Teams is on
yeah.
the horizon. I apologize, I jumped the gun. But Slack, it is available. You don't have to integrate it with these things. It does work inside the tool, and then it'll generate an email. And I'll show you. I'm going to show you and demonstrate that. But it can also be used as sort of a reinforcement of development, and then we can also kind of track engagement, behavior trends. When we're collecting feedback, we know that cultures of feedback, people appreciate feedback. We also know that we have to also not just sit around and also wait for feedback all the time. It's good to train people to solicit feedback. And so we want to also make sure that feedback is delivered in the way that also is matched with that person's preferences. And also, it's good to also make sure it's connected to people's work. And so, because we're using the assessment data from each of the individuals, that the inputs that people have put in, we're getting that personalization. I do want to touch on that sometimes it's important that you're using multiple assessments. So it's the feedback feature becomes more intelligent, right, when we have more assessment input. So we want to have personality tendencies like different motivators, communication patterns, collaboration patterns, even your energy rhythm in there, your decision making style, your cognitive preferences. These are going to touch on many different assessments. So if when the feedback actually is informed by those multiple assessments, it actually becomes richer, more the style in which the person is able to deliver it becomes more precise. It also tends to reduce bias. So if your organization is using just one assessment. You want to encourage, or two assessments, you want to encourage more assessments. So you need to be using several assessments to make this experience richer. So don't be afraid to ask people to take more assessments. It's a couple of minutes. So we can't be afraid to ask people to spend 7 minutes to take an assessment, right? So we can get over that, right? It's one and it's done. So that's something, we can do that. People can get that done in a second, right? So, but we really get a richer experience in Cloverleaf with this layered assessment. So again, I'm just prefacing that, okay? There's some links within the resource, and if you just got here, and you might need to put it in, Jason, again, there's some links within the resource that give you kind of step-by-step how to use feedback within here. So I'm going to demonstrate the feature in a minute, but if you want to click on some of these other resources, it'll give you how to use it. There's all different kinds of different resources in here that show you step-by-step how to use it, okay? But I'm going to demonstrate it right now so that you are clear how to use it, okay? So I'm going to go right into Cloverleaf. So again, when you generate a feedback response, it does give you a notification in your email. Again, right now the integration with Slack is activated. Teams is coming. So if you see, you go right here to feedback. Now, you can generate a feedback request for yourself, or if you are an org admin, and some of you as talent leaders are org admins, so you can, as an org admin, generate a feedback request on behalf of someone else. So for example, you can make a feedback request for someone else. So I'm an admin, right? So I can say this feedback request is for Darren from someone else, right? So, but I'm not going to do that for right now, right? I'm going to say this feedback request is for myself, right? So, only when you're an org admin can you do that feedback request on behalf of someone else. Usually, what I'm going to talk about today is you encouraging other people to request feedback from each other. Okay, just to keep it simple, I'm going to be talking about you embedding the feedback feature to encourage other people to use it with each other, because that's mostly what the people in your organization have the ability to do. Okay. At another date, we'll talk about how you use it to request for each other. For right now, request on behalf of someone else. For right now, I'm going to talk about how you will embed it to encourage other people to use it. Okay. So if I were to request for myself, I could say, okay, I'm going to ask for feedback from Jason. And if I were to ask for feedback from Jason, I could ask multiple questions. So I could use these sample questions, or I could ask a question like, what is the, let's say Jason was my direct report. I could say, what support do you need from me to accomplish your goals this quarter? And this is a great question to ask, let's say mid-quarter, if I'm checking in, let's say if we're doing quarterly goals or quarterly, OKRs, maybe I'm checking in mid-quarter with my direct report to check in. Maybe we have bi-weekly or monthly touch points, and I'm just doing this as, a check-in. Okay. I just create that feedback request. Simple. You could add multiple questions, but I'm just going to ask one. You could ask, I think it's up to 3 questions, correct, Jason? You could ask more than one question. I'm just going to ask one for right now. Now that if I had integration with Slack, that would also go to a Slack notification. It also just generates an email to Jason saying, hey, Jason, Stephanie's asked for your feedback. Okay. Now, I asked Jason just as a demonstration to generate a feedback request for me. So I am going to show you just how the tool works in the context of this, just to set you up here. So Jason has sent me a question, and he's asking me, what do you think we can do to make the webinars more strategic? So I just want to show you on the right-hand side, you're going to see it says the feedback coach. And it's that feedback coach is only informed by my assessment results, right? So sorry, by me, my assessment results, and Jason's assessment results, right? So I'm going to start giving Jason feedback. So I might say, it might be, sorry, it might be a good idea to consider role specific webinars that cater to different accountabilities of our users. So now I've just started with one sentence there. Now you can see the feedback coach is thinking, okay? And it says, Jason needs a clear example. For example, a session just for project managers, and explain how this helps users apply insights more directly. So when we get specific with how users by role can apply Cloverleaf, we can have more targeted sessions and perhaps more interactive learning experiences. Sorry. Let's brainstorm a potential approach to this in our next one-on-one. Come with ideas that you may have to execute this. Okay, so now let's see how I did. Okay, so now there's a little checklist here. It says, nice, it's an actionable ask for Jason. Add a note of appreciation for current efforts first. I appreciate all that you have done so far to make our webinars great. Okay. All right. And now there's a little checklist here. It says use specific examples, describe impact, provide an actionable suggestion, detailed enough to help, and be respectful in tone. So this is a checklist of preferences that Jason would appreciate in giving him feedback. So Jason, since you are the subject, would you say that this response is hitting all the marks for you?
Yes, specifically calling out the example that it asked you to put in. So I love the more context, the better. So
Mhm.
seeing how it can be specifically applied gets my wheels turning.
Okay, good. Excellent. Great. Um, so it started thinking again. I don't know why it did that, but it's all good. Okay, so now the one thing that it does is it does give you the option to replace what you wrote with an AI summary. Now, I don't have to replace it. I could send what I wrote, or I could replace it. So it's your choice. Or I could send what I wrote. It's your choice. Okay. So I could make that choice. Now, when I submit it, I'm not going to submit it for right now. I'm going to leave this for a second. But when I submit it, I just want to show you what it looks like when you submit the feedback. Okay. So when I submit the feedback, I can get the feedback. It's going to tell me some trends in the feedback I received, and then I can take notes here. So let's say I got the feedback and now I want to discuss what's in that feedback in my next one-on-one with this person. I can take notes on the feedback I received. Okay. So I'm just going to pause here. If you want to raise your hand, if you have any questions, I'm going to check in the chat. Melissa, that's a great question. What I would suggest, Melissa asked, can Cloverleaf provide suggestions for feedback questions that are applicable to times like onboarding? We're gonna provide that next. We're gonna do that by people process. We're gonna do that right now. That's exactly what we're heading into right now. The other thing is, if you want to craft a specific feedback question for a specific person, you can actually use that in Discover. You can go to Discover and say what would be an appropriate question to ask this person, right? But we're going to go by people process right now. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Any other questions about how the feature works, though? If you want to use the raise your hand function or you want to ask in the chat, you can also raise your hand and speak. Any questions?
I do want to add something to the feedback while people might be thinking of questions is there are safeguards built around this feature as well. So We don't limit what you can send, but Cloverleaf will definitely want to coach you in terms of maybe using the feedback tool to vent a frustration or something. It will coach you on constructively giving the feedback instead of asking something like, "Why are you such a jerk?" So, Cloverleaf will say, "Hey, that's not a good question. Maybe let's take that one back to the table and reformat it." So, we do have your safety and privacy in mind when it comes to feedback as well.
Yes. Okay, so now we're going to go into this embedding, right, into these actual people processes, right? So let's look at onboarding. So I have created a guide for exactly how you embed into all of these processes, right? So for example, right, so let's say you want to do, this is how you would fit into the people process, like a day 30 check-in, right? So you want to attach this to, like, let's say prior to an existing one-on-one, or maybe within 48 hours of some first major project that someone's being involved in, or maybe after a first cross-functional project or a collaborative moment. Now, this is not a new meeting. It's not something new in any kind of program. It's embedded into actually a moment, okay? It goes early, and it's not any kind of performance evaluation. We're not evaluating anything, right? We're checking in. And at you as the talent leader, or you as the partner, coach partner, supporting a talent leader, you want to just set up automated triggers, okay, that are based on hire date. And you could basically, within 30 days of that first, or you could, if you want to do 45 days, you can decide. I'm just suggesting 30 days. You basically include an email that goes out to both the manager and the new hire. And you might put instructions. You might video yourself doing what I just did, right? Ask someone in your company to send you a feedback request and demonstrate the feature, right? Just do a quick video and invite them to choose 1 to 2 sample questions. So here's what I've done. I have created sample questions for the manager to send to the new hire. And what I've done is focused on the manager asking about clarity, support, and safety. So things like, how clear are my priorities and expectations for your role? Or what could I do better to support your success right now? Did you feel comfortable raising concerns or disagreeing with me? What would make our one-on-ones more useful for you? Okay. This is also sample feedback for the new hire. What strengths have you seen in my contributions? Where could I adjust my communication for greater impact? Now, if you feel 30 days is too early, you need more time, you could do 6 weeks, you could even do 60 days, okay? If you think 30 days is too early. So basically you trigger an email within whatever the juncture is that you want to do it, and you say, "Hi, let's try to use the feedback feature to get some early feedback. And here are some sample questions you can use. Here's Cloverleaf's feedback feature. Here's how to use it. Here, manager, here's how you do it. Here, new hire, here's how you do it." You trigger it, you send it out. It's already, like, just set up your template, do it. And then you invite people in the email to reinforce a clear strength and to discuss it in your next one-on-one. So do ask for the feedback, send it within 48 hours. Maybe in your next one-on-one, you identify any kind of behaviors to adjust. You agree on a visible action, something we can adjust in the next, month, and we revisit maybe in our next one-on-one. Okay. This is super important because especially new hires, they're afraid to surface things, right? They're afraid. We need to invite them to communicate. And a lot of times those things don't surface. And most onboarding issues are new people being unclear and being afraid or being uncomfortable with a new manager and not being able to vocalize it. So if we invite those conversations, we can bring those to the table early, surface it, and that psychological safety gets created much earlier. That trust gets built much earlier. So those small behavior shifts that we can invite in those 30, 45, 60 days, right? Then we're getting ahead of a performance problem that might show up 6 months down the line. So, and then, maybe we're checking in with the manager to maybe just say, "Hey, how are things going?" what did you get out of that feedback exercise? Did anything surface, so that we can get ahead of performance issues or any kind of friction that might be surfacing early on? This is a way for you to be proactive, for the leader to be proactive, for us to get a read on the new hire. It's really something that could lock in some, being proactive, and can lock in some just learning how the person is assimilating, at what rate the person is assimilating into the organization. Any questions about what I just described, the embedding I just described, the structure I just described? You can raise your hand, you can speak. Any other ideas that you hear? Because any other ideas that you hear, if you have suggestions you want to make, you could raise your hand and speak. You could type in the chat. This is just onboarding.
Stephanie, can you set it up so that I want this question to go out at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or would you have to go in and
I'm speaking as you're having them initiate it. So right now I'm speaking as you're having them do it. If you wanted to set it up so that you could have it do it, you could. But right now, you'd have to. The reason why there's a danger in doing that is if they don't know it's going out, they might be like, what's happening? So I think there's a power in them soliciting the feedback and them using the feature, right? So you'd have to do it a little bit differently if you were going to request the feedback on behalf. So right now, what I've done is I've done this in the manner of them using the feature and requesting the feedback.
Yeah. So it's like, it's part of their checklist. Like at 30 days, you need to initiate feedback from these two people.
Yes. Okay. So if you were going to do it differently, where you were going to solicit the feedback you'd have to do some deep training.
Yes.
With your organization of, we're using this feature and we're going to be requesting this feedback on your behalf. Right. So, yeah.
Thanks.
You could automate it. So in terms of automating it, an org admin could automate it. Because the thing is that you wouldn't want to use as a supervisor, you wouldn't want to can it for every person. You would want to use a personalized question for every person. So you wouldn't want to be automating it and just using the same question for every new hire, because each person might be in a different role. So you might be asking a different person a different question. So that's why it should be personalized. So it literally might take 6 seconds to generate it. It's not going to, but the automation will come from talent. They will automate the email, right? So the supervisor, you might just have to put a calendar invite when they get hired that says send it out. So you could automate it by calendar invite, but it took me maybe 3 seconds to generate the question. Okay. The time frame, I would just say it takes maybe a couple of seconds to generate the request. I would say that ask for the feedback before the next one-on-one, right? So you have something to discuss in the one-on-one. So you're asking for them to generate the feedback back, and because it takes maybe a couple of seconds to generate it, and it probably takes a couple of maybe 3 to 4 minutes to give the feedback. So it's not Jason, can you answer that because I don't know about the visibility with the coaches. So right.
Yeah, and I think in addition to like timeframes, feedback requests can stay open indefinitely.
Yeah.
And then you can also manually close them as well. So you do have that consideration as well, that a certain amount of time goes by, you can close that.
And then can you just answer Marcy's question in the chat? Okay. Okay, let's move on to performance. So this is something I'm suggesting to do mid-cycle, because we know, and especially if you have year-long cycles, we know that that's a long time. Even if you have, I'm working with an organization right now that has 6-month cycles. And I like that because I like a shorter cycle. I think a year-long cycle is really hard unless you have a really strong connection to those goals, right? So I'd like a 6-month cycle. However, in mid-cycle, it's like a mid-cycle pulse, right? And so this is like a 60-day feedback check-in before an actual formal review. It could also be immediately after a formal review as a follow-up reflection. So you could use this in a number of ways. This is not a new performance event. You're kind of embedding it into an existing review timeline. It's like, or having, because people should be having one-on-ones, right? That you should also be talking about performance ongoingly. We all know that. No performance review should be a surprise. We all know that. So similarly, you would set an automatic trigger aligning to your performance calendar. So similarly, the way you would do the automatic trigger with onboarding, you would set a simple instructions or short demo, how to use it, invite managers to select 1 or 2 questions, or they can create their own, and then deliver the responses before a scheduled performance conversation. Again, it could be used pre-performance, one-on-one, in advance of the actual performance conversation. You could also do a debrief. You could use the existing review time if you want, or again, this could be a one-on-one that happens before, okay? Because if we're having, let's say, like sometimes, you used to have one-on-one before the actual longer performance conversation. So these are sample questions. Again, we're focusing on impact and execution. Again, this could be a mid-cycle, right? This is a mid-cycle check-in. We're not having it, but it could be several weeks before the actual performance conversation, or it could be, again, it could be, you could decide depending on, I know every organization has their performance process differently. So these are different questions. What outcomes or goals should I be prioritizing differently right now? When do I, tend to move too quickly or too slowly on decisions? I'm checking in on my decision making. A manager could be asking a direct report, what support do you need from me to meet your goals for this cycle? Or where could I provide more timely or useful feedback? So again, these questions could be, I'm giving you these generic questions. You could be asking more personalized questions that are specific to that person's projects, initiatives, goals, right? So you want to to close the loop with this, you want to reinforce a performance strength or identify an adjustment tied to current goals. You might want to agree on a measurable behavior shift to get to the actual performance evaluation, or what's something I can shift to actually meet the goal, or to set new goals if I'm doing this post-cycle, and then also review progress on our next conversation. So this also helps to reduce recency bias when we get to the actual performance evaluation. So we're doing that check-in. It also helps with course correction in real time. So we're not just waiting till we get to that conversation. And then we actually then can have a more developmental experience in the performance process, and we can build in some more accountability. And again, we're always afraid to ask people to do things. But the thing is that these tasks inside of Cloverleaf are so short. You just saw me do it. It's maybe a 3-second question, and you're giving them the questions. That's the thing. They don't have to think of them themselves. I'm giving it to you. You're giving it to them. Okay. And then the actual feedback piece is about 3 minutes, right? So you can say that this task takes you 5 minutes. Okay. Say that. The problem is many people processes are so cumbersome, and Cloverleaf removes that. The way that Cloverleaf's functionality is set up is not like most of the arduous people processes. Think about a 360. Okay, I have done them. Think about them. They are bears. They are huge bears. This is not that. This is a 5-minute exercise. So you have to tell that to people. They don't know what they don't know. And we have to, I know we're afraid to ask people. I know, believe me, I partner with talent leaders. That's my job. And I have to say, okay, I know you're afraid to ask people to do this. I know you're afraid to be like big bad HR asking people to do this. It's okay. We have to be okay and say, hey, this is 5 minutes, right? This is 5 minutes. And here's the thing. It is just as important for people to do these tasks as it is for them to be doing their job. It is just as important to develop their people as it is for them to be doing the content specific work. So that's a culture thing, right? That's a culture thing. We have to be able to understand that is just as important. That's a That's a leadership expectation and a leadership behavior. It is just as important to be leading and developing people as it is to be doing the content of our work. So let's get to leadership development. Any questions about performance, about how I just explained that? Again, you can tweak this. I am giving you a one scenario. You can tweak this. You can change the questions. You can change the juncture at which you send it out, because I know that everybody has a different cycle. Any questions, suggestions, other ways to do it that you see? Raise your hand, ask a question, type in the chat. Any questions? Okay. So we're going to move to leadership development programs. I really love this. I'm starting to use this now as almost like a baseline reflection and an end of program validation. So this is how you can embed it. And if you have learning partners that are not here, I would definitely share this with them. So this is where you trigger a feedback pulse at 2 milestones. This is where you actually invite the participants at the beginning of a program to request feedback that's relevant to the actual leadership content. So here's what I've done. And look, you can use AI to generate these questions, right? So you don't, again, this is not something that you should have to like go crazy to come up with questions. So for example, let's say this leadership development program you had your participants in was focused on leadership communication and emotional intelligence. You could give them a set of sample questions. And this is almost like a 360 light. And they only have to send one or two questions. You could say send one question to a peer, to a couple of peers or a peer, a manager, and a direct report. Okay. And these questions are based on the content of the program. So, for example, how do I clearly communicate expectations, priorities, and decisions? To a peer, I might say, how do I balance candor with respect when we disagree? To my manager, I might say, where do you see gaps in my executive communication or influence? And you send out these questions. Maybe you just want to send one question to a manager, a peer, and a direct report in the beginning of the program. Then at the end of the program, you send those same questions, right, to measure growth. Now, I'm not talking about a workshop because we know workshops don't change behavior. I'm talking about multi-session programs where people are in a program for several sessions, maybe several weeks, months, where they're actually learning and practicing. Okay. So if they're in that program, they're doing a baseline piece and then they're doing a end of program piece where they're doing a baseline and then they're having an end of program behavior validation. Okay. So you could just let them know, here are some questions, pick some people. Now at the end, we're going to do it again. They should be the same program, the same questions for the end of the program. And then at the end, so you use the program sessions to identify at the beginning, okay, what are the trends in some of your responses? So in the beginning, you use it to help people set goals and intentions for the program. Look at all your responses. What are some goals and intentions you want to set for the program? And at the end, you use it to measure growth and help them to set continued go forward goals at the end of the program, okay? And look at some of those trends. And this helps to reinforce their learning, to measure their behavior change at the end. If you're an external partner, this will give you your ROI, like look at the return on the investment, look at what they did. You can show all of that, right? And then it could also strengthen peer accountability and then show that impact, right? Any questions? Any other ideas? Anything you want to share? You can raise your hand. You could also type in the chat. Questions, ideas, insights?
I have an insight.
Yes. Go.
Just to give everybody some additional context. So when you said ROI, that reminded me that we are working on some of the reporting that we give to admins, and feedback is going to tie into that. We're not going to be able to surface like who's exactly saying what to people, but we are going to surface trends and themes. in this update to the reporting. So keep your eye out for that as well.
Mhm. Awesome. So this last process, and this is great, especially if you don't have a career development framework now. This is a good way to start one. And so let's say you want to start career pathing conversations, okay? And maybe you want to do some development planning and you want to encourage people to express their career development aspirations, and you want to encourage leaders to be talking about this with their direct reports. So you could align these feedback prompts into existing career framework or a competency model, or you could use it as a kickoff to, we want to start these conversations, or we want, let's say you have an annual performance cycle, but in the middle of that cycle, you want a development planning conversation. So you could, again, trigger these automatic messages to go out to leaders and direct reports with these sample feedback questions. And again, we're asking the employee to ask the manager things like, what skills should I prioritize? How do I grow? Where do you see the biggest gap between my current performance and the next role? What experiences would accelerate my readiness? What strengths should I lean into? Then the manager could be asking things like, how clear do you feel about potential career paths available to you here? Or what skills do you want to develop over the next 6 to 12 months? So this could be a mid-cycle career development planning conversation. And then you could then give a little bit of a template for a conversation that could be embedded into a one-on-one where managers identify a capability to develop or assign a stretch assignment or define what's ready for the next level. What does that look like? You could also define, you don't have to say we're going to do this for everybody. You could say we're going to do this for this level of employment or this level of manager, or you could select a group of high potential people that we're going to invite to do this. But this makes career growth visible and actionable. This also reduces sort of this ambiguity about how do we advance. It also helps you to get a pulse on, do people feel clear? You could then go back to the managers and say, hey, what was your result of this? Who's standing out in your conversations? And so this also connects feedback directly to progression instead of waiting for those official promotion cycles. And you could also get retention through clarity, right? So you're not having to add all these like, oh, I don't know who's, at risk. Right now, you're kind of going back to the managers and saying, okay, is there anybody at risk that I should know about? Right? Or is there people that are at risk? So this is a great way to sort of leverage your leaders and getting a pulse on some retention issues. Any questions? Again, other ideas you see, ways to use this? Any questions?
Stephanie, this is open to everyone on the call. I'm curious, and it sounds like you've been using it a little bit. So I'm an executive coach, and with some of my clients, part of what I'm supporting them in is having the confidence to have these conversations, right? To not be afraid to talk about the feedback. So I'm just curious on like, how do we balance? This is a great, efficient, and slightly less scary way of having these exchanges. And we don't want it to take the place of
Correct.
having a
Absolutely.
face-to-face, belly-to-belly conversation. I'm just curious what you're seeing or what you might be advising to do both and.
Absolutely. So this is kind of like, breaks the ice for the conversation. And so what you could be putting in the communication is a little bit of a guide for then how to use the information. So, hey, I noticed in your feedback that you said this, like, how can I support you? So you could be adding some coaching questions in the email, like the talent leader or you as the coach could be adding some coaching questions for the leader to be asking, and some follow-up questions for the direct report to be asking us, how do I follow up with this feedback, right? So then it's coaching them or just giving them some questions, like, here are those questions that I could be following up on with this information. How do I have that follow-up conversation, right? And it's for the manager, it's coaching, right? Leader as coach. Hey, I have this, get curious before you get furious, right? If there's anything you're confused about, get curious, lead with curiosity. And for the same thing for the, direct report, like, just get curious, lead with curiosity. If there's anything you're unclear about, come with your questions to our next one-on-one and just get clear about it, right? Get clarity.
Yep.
Okay.